Chris Hardwick, you host both Talking Dead on AMC and At Midnight on Comedy Central, and they're both nominated for Best Interactive Program at the Emmys this year. At Midnight was also nominated last year. Were you surprised to get them both in this time?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's a surprise anytime you're nominated for anything, and I didn't know that we were going to be nominated, but I don't know. It's a huge honor to get nominated, especially twice, because the other people, it's Jimmy and it's SNL and it's also John and John Oliver, and I mean those guys. What Jimmy's done with the Tonight Show has been incredible, and what John has done on Sunday nights on HBO is insane. So it just to be with those guys, I don't know. And I know them too, so it's sort of it's really cool because I'm impressed by what they do. So everyone says like, oh, it's really awesome just to be nominated, but it really is awesome just to be nominated. So I don't know, I don't know who's going to win. I don't expect to win. I don't care though. I'm just excited about it.
Well, at the very least, you do have a statistical advantage. Two shows, odds of getting it. Then.
Yeah, but that means I could lose twice in the same category. I could lose twice in the same night. So, but that's okay. I mean, honestly, it's I went to the technical Emmys. We didn't win last year, and it didn't affect the time that I had. It was really fun. So, I'm looking forward to it.
The Interactive Program Award is the kind of thing that I especially like about the Emmys these days. There have been so many changes in just the definition of what TV is. Thanks to the internet and the various ways we consume media now. And they're actually now incorporating that into the awards themselves. What do you think about having that platform? Not just to be nominated twice, but just to even have the category where shows like yours and material on the internet can actually be recognized.
It's really important because that's where media is now. That's not only where it's going, but that's where it is that TV is multi-platform now. And the concept of being interactive doesn't just mean putting clips on YouTube, which I think a lot of people used to think, oh, it just means you're putting clips. No, interactive means literally interacting with your audience. And, that's what Talking Dead is built on. Is it wouldn't exist if we could, because it's essentially a community outreach program for Walking Dead. So we're interacting with that community, and a lot of the content is stuff that people that we're pulling in from the Walking Dead community, and At Midnight is entirely built around social communities. So whereas the Daily Show took its source from political thing that was going in the political arena and political videos, we do the same thing. It's just we're a game show format, and all of our content comes from internet communities, from web communities, and so. I mean, At Midnight is literally an interactive show. We're pulling stuff from our communities and we're spitting it back to the communities. And so it's to be able to be recognized for that as a way that television and digital are being done now is, I think they're right to do it. And I'm glad that we're a part of it, in these early stages.
With the Talking Dead especially, another thing about having these online interactivity is you sort of also ridden the wave of fandom that has really evolved thanks to the internet. There's more things to geek out over than ever before, more ways to do it, more places to do it, more ways to interact with other people about it. Do you think this is a better time than ever to be a fan?
I think it's a better time than ever to be a fan, and a better time than ever to be a content creator. And fans are content creators now because we not only have the platform to communicate with one another and to build these robust communities that aren't bound by geography, but also ways to make things and then share them with the world. So it's an incredible time for both right now, because television used to just be essentially a monologue where, the TV would just you'd sit on your couch and the TV would fire stuff at your face and you would absorb it and maybe talk to your family or your friends or a couple people at work the next day. But now it's all a conversation, I mean, the audiences are talking back now and they're influencing the way things are done. They're influencing story and they're influencing, and they're so involved with because all the performers are out on social media, so they can interact directly with all the people that they love. So it's a really amazing time, I think, for audience and the people who are making stuff.
Yeah, with Talking Dead and At Midnight, I mean, you have this experience hosting. You've had a lot of it throughout your career, but with Talking Dead, is having that be a live show. Is that something you've done a lot before? Is that a new experience?
No, I've done a lot of it. I worked at G4 for 4 years, and I worked on a show called Attack of the Show, and that show was live, um, 5 days a week. I really like live television because you can't be too precious about it. You just make it, and then it's done, and you don't have to, I mean, you can't really stress over it, and it's immediate. And I think it's vital for the type of show that Talking Dead is, for it to be live, and and Talking Dead doesn't, it's not on Netflix, or it's like you can get it on demand for a couple of days after it airs, but pretty much once it airs, that's it. And I think that's really cool now, because we're so accustomed to, oh, I'll just watch that thing later, or I'll see it when it comes on Netflix or iTunes or Amazon, but you can't with our show, and so that makes it kind of special in a weird way, and as a live show, and but it just it was just it was a different type of a show, and it became too much of an undertaking to make that a live show, so we didn't do that. But I love live television.
And live shows can be unpredictable. Just on
Yeah.
Talking Dead alone. I remember Bob from Chattanooga who called in with the prophecy, and then you had sort of an awkward appearance of Marilyn Manson when he was a guest on the show.
Yeah, but that's what's so great about it, is that it's, the best stuff is imperfect. And that's like, as a comic, I'm a stand-up, and so some of the best moments that can happen in shows are when things go quote unquote wrong, like when something goes sideways, or someone says something weird, or a mic doesn't work, or something happens, because that's a thing that happened in the moment that everyone shares in, and it's sort of a kind of a bonding experience. People always talk about the Marilyn Manson episode, and they still bring up Bob from Chattanooga, even though it was years ago. And so I love all. I think it makes it more interesting. I think when stuff is too perfect and polished, you almost can't trust it. So I like that it's a little. I like that it's a little rough around the edges.
You've had several great guests on the show. Both who are involved in the making of The Walking Dead and others who are fans of The Walking Dead. Is there anyone you've had on who you've especially enjoyed the opportunity to get to to pick their brain?
Well, I mean, there's so many different types of guests who come on the show. I mean, there are people like Yvette Nicole Brown, who is an amazing guest because she's so thorough, and she'll bring notes out, and they're highlighted, and she has so many different angles and so many different details. And then there are people who are more casual fans, and so they have broader philosophical questions about what it's like to live in this world. And then you have the actors who come on and can really tell you where they see the characters and where they're coming from, so you get that bit of insight. And then you have the people who are involved in the production of the show, like either Robert Kirkman or Scott Gimple or Gail Ann Hurd, and they can't ever tell you what's coming up, but they can tell you either how things are made, like Greg Nicotero is great. They can tell you how it's made, or they can give you insight into little Easter eggs, or really tell you where they see the story from the creator standpoint, what it means to them up to that point. So there's a lot of different types of guests, and then just the fans, just having people in the audience get up and ask questions. And I want to make that more a part of the show, because it really is a show of Walking Dead. We're there to sort of be a cheerleader for the show, and to be therapy for people who are trying to process, losing their favorite characters from time to time.
Yeah, and that does happen quite often, and that sometimes makes Talking Dead even an emotional show to watch. I mean, especially when you have an actor on the show who has been killed off. I remember Emily Kinney got especially emotional when she was on Talking Dead after
Well,
her.
of course, yeah. It's really hard for them, because they go out to rural Georgia. They're living this unique experience, making the show together. Let's bleed together, because they just work all day long, and it's really emotional. They're having to express fear and horror and being uncomfortable all the time, and your brain doesn't always separate that it's fake, and so they're really experiencing a lot of these emotions together. And then all of a sudden they're not on the show anymore, and so something that they, like a family that they formed over the last few years, is suddenly they have to say goodbye to. I mean, of course, besides the fact that it's, the phenomenon of Walking Dead is very rare, and it doesn't happen in television that often at all. Really special. But hopefully they know that even though they may not be on the show anymore, they will always be a part of that special experience, and they will always be, Emily will always be Beth Green to people, always, and Scott Wilson will always be Herschel, and John Bernthal. I mean, it's like they will all always be those people to the audience. So I think on some level, hopefully they understand that.
Has there been a particular death on the show, and there have been so many, of course, over the first several seasons? Has there been one that hit you especially hard as a viewer?
It's always when the moral compass of the show, like Dale's death was really hard, and Herschel's death was really hard because, and so what you're seeing in this world that they live in is that, sometimes the best people with the best intentions die horribly. They both had different types of deaths. I think Herschel's was the most senseless because of the way that the governor was involved, and so it was just that was a really hard one because he didn't. I mean, if you're out in the world and the world is full of walkers and they're basically like a bunch of wild animals roaming the earth. If you're out in the open, there's a good chance that you might get taken, but the way that Herschel died was just such a senseless tragedy, and so that one was really hard for me. And there's ones in the comic books that I don't know if they'll ever happen on the show, or it's just they haven't happened yet. But there's one in particular in the comic book that's really rough, and I'm dreading it if it ever happens on the actual show.
There's also coming up is the spin-off show Fear the Walking Dead, which is starting soon. Have you
Sunday.
Have you seen it yet? Do you have an opinion about
Yeah, I saw the first episode. It's freaking great because it's a totally different. As a Walking Dead fan, what's going on? Like the Walking Dead is sort of that's the present day. But to watch a show where they don't know what's around the corner, but what's coming, and you're kind of looking for clues, and it's a totally different show. But it's really great because you don't get to see Walking Dead. It's just Rick wakes up in the hospital, but he's like, he gets shot and then he wakes up in the hospital and the world sucks. But getting to see how the world became sucky it's such a great journey. And I haven't seen past the first episode because I like watching along with everyone else. But it's really great. And I think if it works the way I think it's going to, it'll give people a more year-round Sunday night appointment for to be in this world, because the hardest thing for Walking Dead fans is the 6-7 month wait. It's like it's like the season finale and you're like, crap, what am I going to do now on Sundays? You have to sort of put the world in a closet for a while, but hopefully this will allow people to get to be part of the community more year round.
Your other nominated show, At Midnight, as you mentioned, is it's a game show where comics compete for points by making jokes about things on social media and on the internet, and it feels kind of like a cross between The Soup and Whose Line Is It Anyway, in a way.
Yeah, a little bit.
How did the idea for it first come about?
It was created by a company called Serious Business. It was a totally different show in the beginning. I had hosted a pilot separately for Comedy Central in 2012, which was gonna sort of be more like Daily Show format, but for kind of nerd pop culture. And they Comedy Central didn't pick up that show, but they said, "Hey, Funny or Die and this company Serious Business and Tom Lennon and Ben Garant from Reno 911 all have this show called Tweeterdome, and it's basically it's a daily game show about stuff that happened on Twitter that day." And they showed me the pilot, and within 30 seconds, I instantly got it. And I said, and they said, "Tom can't do the series. Would you want to help us redevelop the show and host it?" So I came in, we redeveloped the show and expanded the scope to be all social media, all web communities, and not just Twitter. And, we worked really hard to basically create what became At Midnight, and it was really fun. My company Nerdist has a theater. We have a live theater space at the back of a comic book store in LA, and We do shows there I don't personally, but people do shows there 7 nights a week, comedy shows, stand-up, improv, and we screen movies. And so I said, well, let's go work out the show live for like 10 weeks at this live theater space and really try to figure out how the show can work. And so that's what we did. And we listened to the audience and workshopped it as a live show. And so by the time we actually got on the air, we had a pretty good idea of what the basic mechanics of the show were going to be. And so, now we just constantly try to evolve that. Your job isn't done once a show gets picked up. Then that's a whole new journey. So that's what we've been doing ever since. And it's probably my favorite job I've ever had. I mean, it's about internet culture, which I've been a part of since 1993. And it's about stand up, and it's with my friends, and almost all the people on the show are friends of mine. And so it's a dream job to get to do that 4 nights a week.
It's also the kind of show that gives me personally a newfound appreciation for comedians, because comics have to think on their feet so quickly on the show, and I feel like I need a prepared outline sometimes to get out of bed in the morning. Is that something about the show? Like how fast these comics are?
Well, yeah, I mean, but they are all the best comics working today, and so I am constantly blown away by what they bring to the table and how fast they are and how funny they are. And that to me, like, the riffing part of the show is the most fun, because it goes and play. The structure of the game show always pulls you back to the show, so it can never go off too far, which is good. But we can go out pretty far and still we get pulled back into the structure of the show. So it's I'm constantly blown away by where people go with stuff and what they bring to the table. And we can all play with each other and screw around because we all know each other, and it's great for comics because they get to be funny on television without burning their material. So they're not burning through all their material that they would want to save for their own comedy specials. They get to be funny, and people get to see that, and then that helps on the road. That helps ticket sales for them, which is great. That's what we always wanted. So it's people like Ron Funches and Nikki Glazer and people like that have really popped off the show, and I know it's had an effect in their ticket sales, and that's what I always wanted as a comic is a show to help with. I know how important that is.
What's the editing like on the show? Like, do you film a lot that doesn't end up making it on air each episode, or are we seeing basically the show as it happened?
Mostly you're seeing it as it happened, but the show has to be 21 minutes. It airs the same day that we shoot it. So we shoot it about 4:30 in the afternoon until about 5:15. So it takes about, really what we have is a 35 to 40 minutes of taped show that needs to get cut down to 21 minutes. So because we have to deliver the show by about 7:30 p.m. our time, that only gives us a couple hours to actually chop the show down. So the editors, we have 2 editors working in edit bays pretty much as the show is happening. And, it's pretty obvious a lot of times, like, where the fat parts of the show are to trim out. But it's really hard. I mean, if you came to see a taping at midnight, I don't think you would feel like, oh my God, how boring is this? Oh, they're just going to make it look like the show was a blast. It really is super fun start to finish. And a lot of times we're in this position of kind of a luxury problem of like, wow, we really like this game, but we really liked how this played out. So it's, we kind of have this really difficult choice. What do we lose? But that's why we have a great digital team, our digital pod. We'll give them stuff that they can put out separately as web exclusives, or, our Thursday shows, we put out a longer unedited version on Comedy Central's website and their CC app. So once a week we are allowed to do that. You will get to see pretty much the show as it happens on digitally, which is, it's a nice bonus for people. We've also, by the way, started periscoping segments of the show. So, yesterday we had Will Wheaton and Felicia Day and April Richardson on. So we did a segment on Periscope while we were taping that streamed live to the internet. That was not on the show that aired that night. It was just for the Periscope and Twitter communities, and that's really fun too. So again, we're an interactive show, and those are the types of things that we like to do to just as a way to sort of throw out more stuff for our audience.
One of the most popular segments on the show is the hashtag wars, which where viewers on Twitter get to play along, and I've done that too sometimes.
Yeah.
How do you sift through all the responses to pick the winners? Do you have like interns toiling in like the salt mines or something?
Yeah, we do have a digital team, and we have researchers, and they go through and do the best that they can to pick what they believe to be some of the shining examples of what the hashtag wars are. And so there is the At Midnight social team is a separate team that sifts through all that, and they've done a really great job. And I'm always kind of touched when people go, oh man, how come mine didn't make it up there? Because it means that people really care about what they're doing, and we really do our best. And so if you wrote a great hashtag and it didn't make it, it's not because sometimes it could have been a question of we just didn't see it. I mean, we get a lot every night. It can be as much as over 100,000 tweets. So we do our best with it.
Yeah, I actually did, full disclosure, make the top 10 one night, and I posted that on Facebook. I posted that on Twitter.
Oh, good. So that made you happy. That made you feel. Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
And it's a wonderful little creative writing exercise too. It's like, how can I be funny in 140 characters right now?
Well, people always ask me for points online. They're like, "Hey, I wrote this. Can I get points for this?" I'm like, "Sure, have some points." And then they seem, I guess they feel that I'm some sort of a arbiter of points. Now I get to decide who gets points, and so that makes them happy. So I'm happy to give out points for people who are making the effort.
I feel like points is on its way, if it's not there already, to being the is that your final answer of this generation? Like
it kind of is. People shout it at me in public all the time now, and I'm like, thanks, I guess. But I'm glad that me shouting points at people was just when we were developing the show live. It is a game show. The points sort of matter, but at the same time they don't. And it seemed I didn't want to confuse people by going 100 points, 250 points, and so we didn't really know how else to express the idea of awarding people during the show. So I just started going points, just because it sort of suggests the idea. It's like they're meaningful but not at the same time. So it never occurred to me that that's just one of those things you can't ever predict. That is delightful to me.
In addition to all the benefits of online and social media, for creative people, fans, everyone, there's also a dark side to it. Of course, trolls can get pretty ugly sometimes. YouTube comment threads, are sometimes like entering the red wedding. It's
Yes.
Being so widely known, especially online. Is that something you've had to contend with a lot?
Trolls?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, since I've been online, I mean, like there's when you give people it's sort of like weaponized anonymity, I always call it, because people, first of all, a lot of times they don't see it as a human interaction. You're interfacing with a machine, and so as coldly as that, because it's just text on a screen. And and there are some people who they're just in a bad mood and they say something really horrible, and it's just kind of an emotional snapshot of however they were feeling in that moment. They don't always mean it afterwards. There are some people who are legitimately destructive, and they do it because it gets them attention, and it's very empowering for them to manipulate people by insulting them, because it does force you. It's like a bratty child, it's like a bratty kid who just wants attention, and so they think like, well, I'll just break stuff and that'll force people to deal with me. And you feel bad for them. I feel bad for those people, because that's how they choose to express their significance in life, is by destroying. And like, how great can their lives really be if that's how they're interacting with the world? So on the one hand, you feel bad for them, but on the other hand, like, I'm a human being, and of course my feelings get hurt. Anyone who says that they're 100% not affected by it is lying. So you just have to kind of separate what seems valid and what isn't, and not take it too personally, if you can. But yeah, I mean, it's not like trolls are going anywhere. So I think we just have to learn how to coexist with them.
Now, in the episode of At Midnight that was on Wednesday night, you got serious for a moment. You were about to talk about, really the horrible, Jared Fogle scandal, and
Sure.
basically said, we're going to make jokes about this, and here's why.
Right.
Have there been other subjects on the show that have been tricky to deal with, or maybe some
Yeah.
that have been too hard to deal with at all?
Absolutely, because I think, some people just see comedy as one thing where they go, well, you're just making fun of this. Because when the Cosby stuff started developing, people were making comics came in and making jokes about Cosby. And I think some people misinterpreted it as, well, they're making fun of the victims of what that situation was. And so, on Reddit, I've responded to it many times and saying, like, no, it's not that anyone's marginalizing the horrible things that happened to the victims. I mean, personally, I think Cosby is a piece of shit for what he did. And so I think as comics, number one, comedy is used to process horrible things. My dad died a couple years ago, and I've written a lot of stuff about it in my act. And it's not because I'm being disrespectful to my father or his death, but this is how comedy, I think one of the gifts of comedy is that it helps us process really horrible things, and it helps us try to gain control over those things and really try to understand them. And I think the other thing is, particularly in the Cosby case or the Fogel case, it's not like we as comics can go punch the guy in the face, which is what we want to do. So we punch with jokes, and we use it kind of as a shaming tool and to point out and go, this guy's an asshole and he did something really shitty and he should be shamed for that. And this is how we do that, and also remind people of what they did. So hopefully these types of things don't happen again, even though we know that they will, but we hope that they don't. And so, in a way, comics are sort of, like joke warriors in that kind of sense. And so they're punching to keep, to punish people and to keep people down who deserve to be punished. And so I think some people they don't necessarily, they weren't making that distinction because comedy is nuanced, as my friend Jen Kirkman always says. And so, yeah, I just wanted people to know when as soon as it was announced yesterday, I knew, like, well, comics are going to be coming in with Jared Fogle jokes, and I want people to understand, like, this is a coping mechanism and it's a defensive mechanism, and we're not marginalizing any of the victims. We're essentially, punching shitty people in the face like Fogle and Cosby. So that's really what it is. And people were really cool about it and really understanding. And some people said, yeah, I always, that's how I've always thought, or, oh, I hadn't really thought of it that way. And, so I think it was just trying to get ahead of a little bit, knowing that's comics are going to process horrible things in the world with comedy. That's what we do. Inside most comedy is the seed of something terrible, because that's part of how we share this communal human experience, is to try to deal with it, and if we didn't have comedy, this whole world would be really horrible, because there's already really horrible things happening, but this is just how we deal with it. So hopefully people understand that. And I wanted to make sure that people understood that it was not, taking shots at any of the victims, but to really just punch an awful guy in the face with jokes.
Well, I want to congratulate you again for the Talking Dead and At Midnight and the Emmy nominations, and a number of other after shows you might be hosting in the future.
Hopefully hopefully if there is an after show for Fear the Walking Dead, I would absolutely do it. But I think that would probably be the last. I think, like, Talking Dead is probably the last after show for now. I think that'll be I did the Breaking Bad one, and I've done a couple for Doctor Who, but I think I think you can only do so many after shows where we're like, geez, the after show guy, is he gonna talk after everything I watch? So the answer is no. It'll just be in the Walking Dead universe.
Yeah, I think they should have you at the very least come on and do an after show for the Emmys.
Talking Emmys, yeah. It's just me complaining, like, oh, I can't believe I didn't win. There are other people in the world, I know, but I'm excited to see what happens this year, and it just as a fan of television and as a fan of all, like, the way that media is going and mashing up, and there are legitimate people on digital now, like, legitimate comedy stars on YouTube and Vine and Instagram, and and starting to be Snapchat and Periscope. And so it's this idea that comedy is only legitimate if it's on one platform is just not real. I mean, it's like, funny is funny, and the fact that we have so many different outlets to get that out to people, and so many people can be discovered without having to be picked by a corporation to be on their, you know, network, I think is really important. And it's a really exciting time. And I keep telling people, like, there's no excuse anymore. If you have an idea, you have no excuse not to make your thing. Shoot it on your damn phone if you have to, but make your thing. And you know, and you can sort of live your dream in a way, because technology has made it accessible.
Well, best of luck at the Emmys next month, and thank you so much for talking with me today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was nice chatting with you.